Hail to the guardians of the watchtowers of the north! By the power of Mother and Earth, I invoke thee! I invoke thee! I invoke thee, Manon! Manon? 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 Is it working? He doesn't know. It's Drewski McGillicuddy's The Craft movie review. Hey everybody, it's Drewski McGillicuddy, and today I figure since Cody Archer was kind enough to send me a copy of the collector's edition of The Craft, that I would go ahead and review The Craft from 1996, and I'm not going to beat around the bush. This is one of my all-time favorites from when I was a teenager. Like, I was literally obsessed with this movie. Me and my friend Stacy watched this movie on repeat. We wore out the VHS tape because, yeah, that's right. You know, this was back when VHS was the thing. We rented our movies from Blockbuster. But anyway, yeah, I even practiced witchcraft when I was 13. You know, I wore all the black clothes, walking around looking like Johnny Cash, stuff like that. All because of this movie. And, you know, what also helped me love this movie was this cast of characters played by Fairuza Balk, Neve Campbell, who is my favorite scream queen, Rachel True, and Robin Tooney. Like, these girls are just drop dead gorgeous, and the funny thing is that they don't look like they're fake. You know, they look like they could be real people living in your neighborhood right now. Anyway, so The Craft from 1996 is about a coven of witches. Well, actually, it's about this new girl that moves from San Diego to Los Angeles, and she meets these girls, and Nancy, played by Fairuza Balk, is kind of a bitch at first, so she's, you know, kind of hesitant to approach them after their little stint in buyout. Whatever, don't worry about that. But then there's this guy, Chris, and he's kind of got his eye on the new girl. Anyway, she's sitting there talking to Chris, and Chris is telling him that, like, hey, stay away from those girls. They're bad news. They're witches. And she's like, oh, whatever. And he's like, well, you should come watch me play football practice. Play football practice. Anyway, she tells him to come to football practice. So she goes to football practice, and she's sitting there watching him. And the girls come up and say, hey, why don't you come hang out with us? That guy's a dick. And then they make him miss a pass because they're witches. Anyway, so she says, come go shopping with us. And they're like, oh, I gotta go home. She's like, no, you don't. Just make up some kind of excuse. Come shopping with us. And she said, well, I ain't got no money. She said, well, neither do we. We get the 5-figure discount. So they go to this witchcraft store. So yeah, this movie starts out lighthearted enough. It's basically just another teen movie. Because, you know, the girls, they go and they hang out. And it gets late. And, you know, they're kind of going through a rough part of town. And at the beginning of the movie, when Sarah first moves into her house, there's this guy with a snake, and he's crazy. He's kind of like Crazy Ralph, and he's telling her, you know, this stuff. And then later on, when they're in this bad neighborhood, he sees her again, and he's telling him, I had a dream about you. In my dream, you were dead. And she chases him across the street, and they all look at him and give him the eyes. And sure enough, he gets hit by a car, so they all run off to their little chill spot, and they're like, oh my God, we made it happen because we all looked at him and we all thought it, and it happened, and it had to be. Now Sarah's our fourth, because they were looking for a fourth, because you can't have a covenant with just 3 witches. That's just fucking stupid. So anyway, now Sarah's their fourth, but they start freaking her out a little bit, talking about all this stuff with Manon. Anyway, he's basically the football field of God, and the devil play Thanksgiving football on. Anyway, so she freaks out, she leaves, and she goes and hangs out with Chris. Chris is like, you know, putting the, you know, he's basically laying it on her, you know, trying to, you know, whatever. talking about the shape of her fucking head. I mean, I don't know how the hell that's ever worked. Because then he's like, oh, can I kiss your fucking perfectly shaped head? And she's like, yeah. And then he's like, all right, well, let's go back to my house because ain't nobody home. And she's like, no, I know what you're trying to do. So, you know, and she goes home, and the next day, all of a sudden, he's going around telling everybody that they banged. Because that's the kind of guy he is. Oh, did I mention that was Skeet Ulrich? That there's two people from Scream, and Scream came out the same year as this movie. And we got two people from Scream in this movie and that movie. Hey man, plug that fucking PlayStation controller in. Oh my god, I'm only at 2 minutes. This is fucking ridiculous.
I'm trying to be quiet. Hurry up.
Anyway, what was I talking about? So yeah, he goes around spreading rumors, saying that, you know, he banged her when he didn't, and it leads to one of the best F words. You know how they're allowed to say the F word once in a PG-13 movie, and they utilize it perfectly in this movie. And I probably can't even find the clip. But she basically walks up to him and says, why are you doing this to me? And he says, look, I don't want to see you again. Stop begging, it's pathetic. And he just looks like a real douchebag, and I really wanted to punch him in the face. But she goes, hey Chris, guess what? Fuck you. And it's great. It's great. It's great. I loved it. But anyway, so these girls start messing around. They go on a field trip, okay? And that leads to one of the best lines in the movie when the bus driver tells them, hey girls, watch out for the weirdos. And they say, and I don't know, there's just something about Fairuza Balk. She's so goddamn gorgeous. Like, let's just fast forward to this scene. Like, yeah. I mean, good God almighty. Like, are you looking at it? I mean, just look at it. I mean, this is PG-13. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, shit. This would be half the review here. We'll just keep. I'm sorry, I can't help it. Anyway, so they go on this little field trip, and they do this little saying, and they all, like, cast these little spells and drink from this goblet. And Sarah wishes that Chris would like her, and that Rachel wishes that people would stop being fucking racist pieces of shit, because you got Marcia from the Brady Bunch being just a bitch to Rachel because she's black the whole movie, making fun of her hair. Anyway, then you got Sidney Prescott over here, who's got Freddy Krueger burns all over her body, and she doesn't like those, so she wants those to go away. And then Nancy is tired of being white trash, so she's trying to get the white trashiness to go away. And then slowly, all the stuff they wish for unfolds. Like, Chris, the next day, comes up to Sarah, and he's like all puppy dog, like following her around, holding her books for her, and he sits when she tells him to sit, and then pays attention when she tells him to pay attention. And it's hilarious because Bonnie over here cracking up because the spell's working, and they're all like getting giddy and excited. And then the bitch Laura, that's being a bitch, her hair starts falling out because she keeps being a bitch. Did I mention that she was a bitch? And then they play light as a feather, stiff as a board, and realize that their powers are real and that they're real witches. But then later on, they decide they're going to invoke the spirit, which is a terrible idea. Terrible idea, especially, you know, if you're going to take it to a dark place. Because that's exactly what Nancy does. She takes it to a dark place. But no, before they invoke the spirit, yeah. Okay, I don't want to get ahead of myself, because before they invoke the spirit, all their little spells that they cast works. Like, Chris falls in love with Sarah. Rachel's bully. Is it Rachel's? Rochelle's bully has her hair start falling out, and Bonnie gets her scars removed because she had them Freddy Krueger scars, and now they're all gone. So now she's walking around looking like Miss Thang. And then Nancy's all pissed off because her spell of not being white trash didn't work. But then late one night, she comes home, or she comes out of the bedroom wearing this fancy robe, and her stepdad, or whatever you want to call him, goes to take a peek, and she says, "Don't do that," and then her mom slaps him, and then he says, "Don't you ever hit me," and then she gives him the fucking Fairuza Balk eyes, and it fucking stops his fucking heart, because she's a scary fucking bitch, and she hasn't even gone full scary bitch yet. So he dies. He dead. Okay? And then apparently her spell worked, because here comes an insurance adjuster to be like, "Hey, here's $175,000. So what do? They go live in a deluxe condo in the sky. They're moving on up, everybody. And then her mom gets a jukebox with nothing but Connie Francis on it. And none of the girls know who Connie Francis is, but that's beside the point. But then they go into the bedroom, and that's when they start doing the illusion stuff. Because it's funny. It's funny, I forgot to mention that Robin Tunney wears a fucking wig the entire movie, because she had to shave her head for Empire Records. And then the only effect in the movie that I thought was kind of weird looking was when she does her hair blonde, because it looks like they just tried to computerly generate a different hair color on the already existing wig, and it looks all green screened and weird.
They should have just gave her a different wig.
Yeah, they should have just gave her a different wig. How hard would that have been? It probably would have been cheaper too. But that's just a minor little gripe, okay? A minor little gripe. So, so everybody's spell comes to fruition, and life's peachy. Life is peachy, okay? And then they go to the bookstore, the little witchcraft bookstore, and Nancy picks up this book called Invoking the Spirit. And the pages are coming to life and basically, taunting her to come invoke the spirit. So she goes to buy the book, and the lady tells her, invoking the spirit's a very serious thing. And she said, "Well, I'm a big girl, blah, blah, blah. Let's get on with invoking the spirit." So they go to the beach. And I gotta say, the soundtrack to this movie, especially the scene where they first get to the beach. I don't know who any of these artists are. I don't know any of these songs. But when I'm watching the movie, I absolutely love these songs. But do I have an example? Probably not. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That's beside the point. They get to the beach. They invoke the spirits. They do their hails to the guardians of the watchtowers of the north, south, east, and west. And then Nancy loses her fucking mind. Because they wake up and there's a bunch of dead sharks. And she really, really, really starts wigging out. And not acting right. Okay, and then they go back to the driving. And she's acting even crazier. But she's kind of got her wits back about her. And until I saw some deleted scenes on the thing, it was this doesn't make any sense how they would just all of a sudden say, "Well, you know what, we're just gonna go crazy with her," because that's basically what happens. Bonnie and Rochelle just decide, "You know what, we're gonna be on Nancy's side, and if you want out of the circle, you get out of the circle." So it's they have a little falling out in their coven. So Sarah goes to confide in Chris and tell him, we were the best of friends, and then we have one little disagreement, and they turn their back on me like that. I mean, that's not friends. And so he's like, "Yeah, I know. I know exactly what you mean," even though he hadn't listened to an entire thing she said because he was probably staring at her tits. And he's like, "Yeah, I have no idea what I'm talking about." And then all of a sudden he starts trying to rape her. But she gets away. Luckily, she gets away, and she runs and she goes to Rochelle's house and tells her what happened. And they don't like it. And that's when shit starts to get real serious, because Nancy decides she's going to go to this party and find Chris. And I do love this scene where, she's messing around with him on the bed, and he's doesn't want nothing to do with her, because he also made up the same lies about Sarah, about Nancy years prior or whatever. Maybe, I don't know. he had either had sex with her and said he didn't, or he didn't have sex with her and said he did, and then telling everybody that she's a slut. Anyway, so they had that history. So she turns herself into Sarah and then starts fidgeting around with his Johnson. And then that's when the girls show up at the party to try to stop Nancy from doing whatever the hell Nancy was going to do. And they bust in. And it's a really cool scene because Sarah's there laying on the bed with him. And then Sarah walks in the door. And then you look up at Sarah and then back over at Nancy. And it was a cool shot. It's a real cool shot. Which it gets even better because, you know, he's trying to apologize because she's blah, 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 blah. And she's freaking out. And she starts telling me shit. And he doesn't even exist to her. And that's when he says, I'm sorry. And then that's when she kind of has a conniption fit and just wigs all the way the fuck out. And then throws his ass out the window. And now we've got 2 people dead. And things have gotten serious now. And this leads into like the 3rd act where it actually gets fucking scary because, you know, Sarah don't want no part of these crazy bitches anymore. They done killed Chris. They done killed Nancy's stepdad. And, you know, she even tries to put a binding spell on Nancy, and Nancy finds out about it. And there's actually a pretty cool deleted scene. Actually, the deleted scene kind of goes on a little long. I can kind of see why it was cut. But there's a deleted scene where she tells Rochelle and Bonnie that she's going to bind Nancy. And then Nancy walks up and catches him. But instead, we get her trying to bind him. And then when she gets to school, everybody's looking at her funny. And she goes to hide in the stall. And then that's when Nancy and them come in and they confront her. You know, and be like, well, if you want out of circle, you might want to leave the school. You might want to leave the state, and hell, you might want to leave the planet. That night when she goes home, there's a message saying that her parents went back to San Diego on this 3:15 flight. And then Nancy calls saying, oh my God, did you not hear? Turn on the TV. Your parents left and they thought you went back home and now their plane crashed and oh no. And this is when it gets real fucked up because Nancy and Bonnie and Rochelle come in and they tell her you're going to kill yourself, and they make it look like she slits her wrists and like all these bugs are everywhere. And this shit fucked me up when I was a kid, especially the fucking shit when it was coming out of the toilet. I was always checking the toilet for bugs. Like this movie, for a PG-13 movie, like it's not gore. I mean, you don't even need gore when you got bugs. Shit. That make anybody cringe. I don't care who you are. So anyway, you know, they're doing all this stuff. They're just being evil. They want her, you know, they want her dead just because she wanted to leave the circle. But as she lied dying, I mean, how can I spoil a movie from 1996 that everybody's seen? As she lied dying, she invokes the spirit. And then she becomes a badass. And I absolutely love this scene where, you know, because Nancy tells everybody to go up and look for her. And then they see the reflections in the mirror because she had invoked the spirit. Now she's got the power. They look in the mirror. Rochelle sees her going bald. And then Bonnie sees the burn scars and they go running out of the house. Which the funny thing is, and this is why like the deleted scenes kind of like shouldn't have been deleted. Because, or I don't know, because Rochelle, before she goes full crazy with Nancy, you can see she has some kind of remorse for the spell she puts on Bitch Face, because there's a scene where she's sitting there and it's all whatever, her hair's falling out. And then when she gets to the party, she's wearing this fancy wig and she's trying to be nice to Rochelle. But anyway, let's fast forward back to what the fuck I was talking about. But yeah, Sarah becomes a badass, and I love the scene where, you know, Nancy goes up because the girls come running out, so she's going up to check on Sarah to find out what happened. And then comes out of the mirror. That effect, even though you can kind of see the green screen effect, it's still kind of cool and creative, and I really like it. Hopefully I was able to show you what I'm talking about, just in case you forgot. Anyway, so then Nancy gets scared. You can start to see the fear in her eyes, like, oh shit, here I thought I was this all-powerful witch. now I've got some competition, and she might be stronger than me. You can actually see that she's scared. Because before she was talking about Sarah being scared. She's like, scared, Sarah? You scared? And now she's scared. And she starts pleading with her like, okay, I'm sorry I tried to kill you. I'm sorry I made it look like your family killed themselves. It was just a joke. It was a practical joke. It was a real funny joke. So she starts to try to bind her again, and then that's when, we get to the final fight of the movie. Who's going to come out on top? Watch the movie yourself to find out, but yeah, you know who comes out on top. Good always prevails over evil. So she pretty much fucks Nancy up. Nancy ends up in the loony bin thinking she could fly. And then the girls come over and ask her if she's got any powers anymore, and says, hey, we should hang out. We're sorry for trying to kill you. And turns out she does still have some powers, and she doesn't appreciate it. She said no. She doesn't want to hang out with them. And they're like, oh, she probably doesn't have powers anymore anyway. And then she thunder and lightning almost kills him with a tree branch. And that's The Craft, everybody. And it is a fucking phenomenal fucking movie. 10 out of 10. And if you don't agree with that, you can kiss my ass. See, look. I have subtext under my numbers so that I could be creative and original or something like that. I don't know. But if you don't love this fucking movie, you're a goddamn liar, okay? Who doesn't love The Craft? Even Sarah likes The Craft, and she won't watch fucking Mean Girls, and it's essentially the same fucking movie, just without witches.
Has to have witches.
But it's bitches instead of witches. Because this was the bitches of Eastwick, and he was just... I don't fucking know what I'm talking about anymore. I'm a lot like Chris in that scene. He's like, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Anyway, have you seen The Craft? Do you love it as much as I do? Anyway, if you do, let me know in the comments section. If you don't, let me know in the comments section, and I'll probably harass you and call you names and such. Anyway, click the like, subscribe, and other buttons, and then follow me on the social medias. I don't want to ramble on for far too long. That's past my bedtime.